What is a test? How do you write test in Angular? And how do you run it? How do you visualize it and what elements are there in test? Let's find out today. So this is our app. We are going to do some Jasmine Karma testing. Anyways, when you create any Angular application through ng new command, you will get a spec file, and that's where we'll begin. Let me put some code in our component and let's test this out. So as you can see, we have our Angular component running here with some title, and then let's go to write some test around this. So before we actually go ahead and write, all test file which you have in Angular ends with .spec.ts file, right? And before we even go into testing around this in Angular, by default Karma is used, so you must have heard of the term Jasmine Karma. Karma is used to run the test. Jasmine is the framework with which we do the testing. So there are things like spy on and other details from Jasmine which we will be using right now. But these are provided from Jasmine and Karma is for running the test. And all the tests are written in spec.ts file. Your test initially starts from test.ts, where basically it is saying, this line is saying basically that find all the ts spec.ts file in your project and run take those files only for testing. Also, there is one more file which should be mentioned is karma file, which is like a configuration how your test should run. We generally don't would want to change this file, or even we are if changing those, then it will be just for one or twice, two times, because we want to change the way it is coverage is done or different things are done, different plugins coming into it. But this is like out of scope for our today's discussion. Let's go and write a simple test for our component. You will see these describe things as a bundle of reports, internal smaller reports of all the tests. So you can think about, for a basic understanding, generally each component will have a describe. This arrow function can internally contain multiple things, like it contains before each. Before each, as the name suggests, whatever you write in before each will be executed before each test case. Now, what is a test case? Test case is defined by each statement. Each statement is a test. Each statement is a test. So there are four different main things: before each, before all, after each, after all, and then it. These are the five things which make up our testing framework. Now, Testbed is a framework or basically a utility provided by Angular, which with which you can compile your components individually. It looks and it works as similar to the thing which you have written in the ng module. It is almost same to this guy, but in app module you are packaging your 50 different components or 10 different components. In testing, if you're writing a test for one component, you would need to bundle that all 50 components. So you can think about as a ng module for only your component, single component. What declarations you need to make, what providers you need to add, what are the modules which you need to import only for your one component. So and then at the end, after you have configured the module, the testing, that's what we call here testing module, you would like to compile all the components together. Now, after you have compiled, what you do is basically you will say your test bed had declarations of maybe your app component has a child component, then in declarations here you have to mention both app component and your child component. Now the test bed can go ahead and create child component also or app component also. So here we want to only test app component, so that's why we are creating an instance of that component. Const x equals to new app component. It's not something like that. It's not. This is just an instance. This fixture contains the component instance. It's like in Angular way. It has built everything in it. It has even the HTML part of it. It has even the TS part of it. And you can use those both to do your testing. Right? So that's for basic introduction. Let's continue to write some test case and we'll test those out. So I need to pause here for a while, saying that when you want to run test, you have to write npm run test. This executes the test command here, which is simply ng test. You can write either ng test or you can write npm run test. This will just execute ng test internally. So let's wait for this. So you can see that our test cases, one test case is getting failed here, which is saying that basically inner text of null is not found. But our two test cases you can see that are passing. Let's go ahead and understand why this is failing and try to debug it. So as you can see, now our test cases are passing, and as I told you, describe actually is the one where it is written on top. Then you will have bullet points and then you will see all the test cases there. These are links, you can click and run them individually. You can see that there are three test cases which we ran. Also, let me explain quickly what we have done here. So we have created the component. Then in fixture, which I was saying that contains HTML and component instance contains something called as native element, which is like complete HTML element of it, the component's HTML element, and then we are running something which is present in JavaScript called as query selector. In that you can just pass the class name of thing which you want to query select, or maybe ID of it. ID is with hash, classes with dot, or you can use basically the CSS thing which you use to apply style. You can use here with all the things like spaces and everything, whatever CSS does. Then what we do is, this is important. This line is the one where it will initialize the component. So your component, which when it is created, right, the variables are not initialized. When you write detect changes, it's like when component is rendered on the screen. So it will run all the cycle of lifecycle hooks, and then it will render the changes. And then what we are doing is we got the HTML element of it. Then we are checking the inner text and we are matching it to be X. This is how we do a basic testing in Angular. I hope you enjoyed video of the testing, how it is done in Angular and what can be done. There are a lot of topics to go into, and there are a lot of videos which are still to be made. It would really help me if you can just press that thumbs up button and subscribe button to keep watching my videos and learn better Angular. Thank you.